and welcome to the special initiative ITC and News 18 Network's Mission Millets, a powerful campaign aimed at spreading awareness about the nutritional and health benefits of millets. Our mission is to engage policymakers, nutritionists and medical experts in advocating for the integration of millets into our daily diets. Furthermore, we endeavour to inspire urban communities to learn from rural practices where millets have always remained integral and reintroduce these nutritious grains into our kitchens. So the theme for today's discussion is millets. Nourishing people, sustaining the planet. I'm Paramita Chatterjee, and joining me today for a special fireside discussion on this topic is the very fit and very capable Dr. Nikita Suresh, a nutritionist, and she's also a Fit India ambassador. Thank you so much, Nikita, for being a part of this discussion.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Right now, let's start at the very beginning. You know, millets is something that we've all heard of, but tell us a little bit more in terms of what is the current consumer perception and what really needs to change when we think and talk about millets.
At present, consumers, they are aware about the benefits of millets, but this has happened slowly over the years, and people were not aware that it was actually part of our culture and it was popular among Indians. And this is largely because of the Green Revolution, which changed up dietary habits, and wheat and rice became a household staple. Right. And this caused, the decline in millet consumption. And there were also studies done between 1973 to mid-2000, which showed a decline in, millet consumption, a huge 67% decline in urban areas and 59% in rural areas. But thankfully, the government has understood the importance, health benefits of millets.
So basically, you're saying millets have always been part of our history.
Yes.
It's a very Indian thing.
Correct.
But now the thing is that, the chances, for instance, I have just become aware of millets because I'm right here in Karnataka, where there's a lot of emphasis on millet-based diets. Ragi is one of them. But when you interact with your customers, are they really aware about what is millets and how important it is for their diets?
Many of my clients were not aware that ragi is also actually a millet. They were consuming it, and then after looking at so many ads and so many promotions on millets, they tend to assume that it was something new, a new crop that they've not heard of before. And then thanks to all this awareness, and then 2018 was declared the National Year of Millets, and most recently, just last year, 2023 was declared by the UN as International Year of Millets. So all these campaigns have definitely helped increase the awareness on millets, and now people are accepting it and more open to try out the various millet-based dishes.
Indeed, we want to know more about those dishes because it's really interesting how millets can be incorporated in our diets. But let's talk a little bit about nutritional benefits. Again, this is perhaps like, for instance, in the South, people may be more aware because they have ragi and they have various millets already in their diets. But in the North, it's all about the ghee and the milk and, the rotis which are being made.
Correct.
So tell us a little bit about the nutritional benefits. How do they compare with, say, traditional other grains?
Right. Millets, actually, there's a wide variety of millets, and people may not be aware that there's something called major millets, minor millets, and pseudo millets. So when you talk about major, that's the one which is the pearl millet and finger millet and sorghum, or in common terms, ragi, jowar, and bajra. So these are the major millets which are more commonly consumed, and the ones people are trying to promote now are the minor millets. Those are the foxtail, kodo millet, proso, little, barnyard. So there's a huge amount of,
So
millets.
when you say, the major millets,
Right.
these are what, bigger in size? The
Correct.
little millets are literally smaller in size?
Yes.
And the pseudo millets are just frauds?
Pseudo, yes, they're not actually millets, but that's the amaranth and buckwheat. So these are the pseudo millets.
Okay, so actually ragi, jowar and bajra, I think jowar and bajra is something which is used in the North already. So
Correct.
it's already part of their diets, especially during the winter months. But, again, when you talk about millets and, if I'm told that incorporate it in your diets, I'll be like scratching my head, where do I start? Okay, I know about ragi, bajra usually one has in the winter in the North, the bajre ka roti. But how do you really propose that people incorporate these into their daily meals?
See, it might be difficult for people because they're not aware of the different, nutrient values of each millet. So, for example, rather than just eating a specific type of millet, it would be best to have a variety and incorporate all the different ones, because each of them are different. For example, ragi, which is commonly consumed, is very high in calcium, and the other grains like your foxtail or little millet and proso, they are slightly higher in fat, slightly, not too different, and some of them are higher in protein like your amaranth and your proso millet are higher. Then in fiber, barnyard is higher. So that way each one is, you know, very different in terms of macro and micronutrients.
So that's the first rule of thumb. Mix it up.
Yes.
Don't stick with just one millet.
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
so if you have ragi, try and get the other ones as well.
Absolutely.
The amaranths and the buckwheats and the, the
Barnyard,
foxtail.
anything. Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so mix it up. Okay, that's one rule of thumb.
Absolutely.
In terms of, okay, say I want to make lunch and I want to incorporate millets in my lunch today. How would you propose a sort of a simple way of doing so?
If you're not someone who's used to having millets, then two things you're going to look at: how tasty it is and how it's going to react in your gut. Are you going to feel uncomfortable and bloated? Because millets do have fiber. So sometimes if you are not used to eating it and the first time you introduce it, you might feel uncomfortable. So the best way is to introduce it slowly. Don't replace all your meals. In a whole week, even just 2 to 3 dishes, if they are replaced, is a great addition.
Okay.
But this needs to be done seamlessly. So even starting with just 1 meal a week, then 2 meals, and then 3 would be the easiest, giving your gut time to get used to millets.
In terms of, say, recipes, for instance, khichdi is something we all make. Can I replace, for instance, the rice that I use with millets or something else, one of the other grains with millets?
You can replace. In terms of health, it's absolutely wonderful. However, the taste you get from rice and the taste you get from a millet khichdi is completely different.
Okay.
So millets have a slightly grainy texture, and sometimes it has to be cooked longer to make it slightly softer. So people might find it difficult. My suggestion would be to maybe start with something that doesn't have too much of a texture and taste difference. So that would be like millet-based snacks. So the snacks will be very similar to your Indian snacks. However, it's just made with millet. So you may not know the taste difference. And once you've introduced millets into your diet, then you can move on to, rotis or dosas. So you're already used to ragi roti, jowar roti, bajra roti. Same way in the south, you can do ragi dosa or any foxtail millet dosas.
So again, do I sort of reduce the proportion of wheat and start gradually increasing, say, ragi atta in my rotis?
So you can do part wheat and part ragi. You can mix like a 50% flour for your rotis. For your dosas, in your same rice batter, you can add millet, or you can completely shift. The taste will be slightly different, but it's still easier to accept like a dosa and a roti rather than plain millets like a rice.
Now you mentioned snacks.
Yeah.
Give us some millet snacks that would be easy to make.
So actually millets can be used in any form, in any dish. They are very versatile.
Okay.
So you can make like a salad with it, but again, like I said, these are based on your taste, what you are used to having.
Okay, so for instance,
like
we
a
all
cold salad maybe.
Right. So you mean I soak the millets,
Yes.
boil it, like say I would make a quinoa salad.
Absolutely.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
So that's very interesting. So I can replace that with millets.
Yes.
Now, now millets, if we may say so, are, again, this is a perception. It was my perception as well, that they're a bit pedestrian. The kind of foods you make are perhaps not the high quality, high end cuisine.
Yes.
I'll go to a 5-star restaurant. Is that actually true, or is there a lot of innovation which is happening in this space?
Yeah, it used to be perceived as the poor man's food, if I may say. But the culinary innovation right now is, huge. There's so many millet-based dishes. It doesn't have to be just the Indian cuisine. Whether it's even pizzas or pastas, they can be also made with millets. In fact, recently I attended the Organics and Millets International Trade Fair, and there were ice creams made from millet milk.
Wow.
So
how did it taste?
It was good. Because I had to ask them, I said, are you adding milk, or how are you making this ice cream? And they said, no, it's millet milk. So it's again a plant-based milk. So it's a great option for vegans, as well.
So there's a lot of innovation. There's
absolutely.
a lot. I mean, let's not restrict ourselves into thinking that, okay, these are the only few ways in which I can consume.
Yes, it just doesn't have to be Indian cuisine. So whatever your dietary food habits are, it can be incorporated.
Fabulous. And social media, we all are constantly looking at stuff, and if I do a search on millets, my goodness, my Instagram just explodes.
True.
How integral do you think social media is in really promoting millets and really our adoption of millets as well?
Social media definitely plays a huge role in increasing the popularity of millets and advocating its benefits. Not just for professionals, even students and homemakers, all of them are on social media now. And in fact, this message reaching homemakers is very important because they are always looking out to try out new recipes. They're worried about the health of the family, what to cook that particular week. So reaching them when they take care of themselves and the health of their family, that's the first step, to a healthier future.
And most of the information out there is trustworthy, as in, there isn't much I can go wrong if, say, I was to follow a millet recipe on, say, Facebook.
Recipes, I would say you can trust, but it's where you're getting the advice from about millets that you need to be a little more wary about. Trust the sources, qualified, experienced sources would be the best.
And what's also very interesting, because you explained to me how millets have always been part of our history,
yes,
is that there's a lot of culture, there are a lot of rituals associated
Correct.
with millets, which perhaps a lot of us are not aware of.
Yes. So, because wheat and rice have become a household staple and we've forgotten about millets, but if you actually look back at, the cultural history of India, in fact, the harvest festival, which we just finished, the Makara Sankranti, millets have been a part of it. Like, especially in the south, we have millet-based dishes, a pongal. We do a dish where we use foxtail millet and ghee. And even in the north, they make a bajra millet laddu. So this way, millets have been part of it. Even in Kerala, little millet is quite common.
Right.
And for example, Navratri, where you can't have rice, but they use something called sama chawal, which is your barnyard millet. So millets are actually part of our festivals and culture.
The governments and the international community is really trying to promote millets.
Yes.
And how important, you mentioned a little bit about the importance of these campaigns, but 2023 was actually the International
Correct.
Year of Millets. Was that a bit of a game changer in terms of really creating awareness? How important was it?
Absolutely, it's had a huge impact, and in fact a positive impact on changing the minds and perception of millets among the consumers. So the number of people now who are aware about millets, the amount of consumption, their willingness to try out the different cuisines, go to restaurants and try it out, all of this have increased drastically thanks to these government initiatives. And that's why there are so many startups and companies making millet-based products now. So yes, it's had a huge impact.
Indeed. And for a fact, I think 2024, the first thing I'm going to ask a restaurant is, what's millet-based on your menu?
Yes.
That's here in India. But, we also talk about the international community. And let's face it, especially international, or when we talk about the West, there's this obsession with protein and,
yes,
going gluten-free. Of course, we have the vegan fad. I mean, where does millet sort of fit in here if you were to really promote it on an international scale? Is it, for instance, gluten-free? Does it give me some amount of my protein requirement? Just tell us what more can be done to promote it internationally.
Right. As we were just discussing earlier, all of these culinary innovations, they help increase our curiosity. But for it to be really beneficial, it has to be part of your dietary lifestyle and has to be sustainable. And it's not just the Indian cuisines. You can make millets, as I was saying, with pizzas or pasta. So this way there is a global acceptance because it can also be part of their cuisine. And yes, in terms of gluten-free, it is naturally gluten-free. It does contain amount of protein. As I was saying, a pseudo millet amaranth is a great source of protein. So it also fits vegans, it fits vegetarians, and of course non-vegetarians, it's fine. And if you want to make a balanced meal, adding your millets instead of, say, a quinoa or instead of oats, and having it with a side of beans or pulses, or if you're a non-vegetarian, with a non-vegetarian sauce, this way it helps balance your meal. So it can be added to any cuisine, whether it's for the Indian audience or the global audience, it can be easily incorporated.
But it is a carbohydrate, right?
It is mainly a carbohydrate source, so it is from the cereal and grain family.
Because, India is seen as the next diabetic. We keep jostling with China about being a diabetic capital, and many of us are in the pre-diabetic age and trying to, hide the sort of the donuts which is there residing in our bellies. So, how important do you think these kind of dietary changes can go towards really assessing and tackling health issues such as diabetes or even high blood pressure?
So millets, because of their being rich in fiber and protein and complex carbohydrates, they're great for managing your blood sugar. So for diabetes, it's a great addition to their diet, and not just diabetes, even cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, weight management, for gut health. All of these millets can be added. So that way, it has to be introduced to your diet, but of course, seamlessly.
Right. And, tell me a little bit about, for instance, you're incredibly fit. Of course, you are a nutritionist. In your daily life, give us a sense or a slice of how you have incorporated millets.
So predominantly as a South Indian, millets, we've been using major millets. So ragi has been quite common. So whether it's a ragi dosa, ragi roti, or something we call like a ragi ball, which is ragi mudde, these have been common dishes. But what I have introduced are the minor millets. So that is your foxtail and barnyard. So with this, you can also make dishes like your barnyard puris you can make. You can make millet-based dhoklas.
Right.
You can make porridges. You can make khichdis, which you also introduced.
So when you said like porridge, you mean I can replace the oats or the dalia
Absolutely.
which is there and use millets
instead.
Okay.
You can also make it like a drink. So you get millet flours as well, and so you just add it with milk or any spices or whatever mix you want, and just drink it like an energy drink as well.
Right, so, because just on a final note, 2024, we are in the beginnings of the new year.
Yes.
That's the time when all of us make new resolutions. Of course, many of us drop them along the way, especially come February. But when it comes to your advice to our viewers today, in terms of resolutions that they can make, and of course our idea is Mission Millets, what do you think some of those resolutions should be when it comes to simple tips where they can incorporate this very valuable grain into their diet?
Firstly, I would say do not completely replace or change your lifestyle, because it is not sustainable and you are going to follow it maybe 1 week, 1 month, and that's it. So the first step would be to try and identify what changes can you do. Can you introduce at least one meal in a week? If you can, great. Start with that for the first week. Second week, you can make it 2 meals in a week, and third week it can be 3, and overall you can just do maybe 3 or 4 meals in a week. It doesn't have to be a complete change. You don't have to stop white rice or your roti. Just few dishes can be millet based.
Okay.
Then your snacks, you can introduce millets, or your breakfast, any specific meal can be replaced with millet based. So I would say this way is more sustainable and you will continue it for long. But unless you do it consistently, only then will you see the health benefits.
And most importantly, health benefits, fabulous. What about weight benefits?
Absolutely.
Will I get to lose weight?
So one specific ingredient will not help you lose weight, it's your overall intake. But yes, if you are used to a very high carbohydrate diet, your meals are not balanced, you want to increase your fiber and your protein, and that will help you lose weight, then yes, adding millets will definitely help you lose weight.
So Nikita, you mentioned about innovation food, and those were some fantastic examples, Indian examples. But in say the more Western concepts of say pizzas and pastas, how do I really incorporate millets into that?
So it's basically substituting your wheat flour with millet flour. So whether it's your pizzas or your pastas or even wraps, they can all be made using millet flour. So you get your millet tortilla, so that's another option. Or just like how you have a quinoa tabbouleh or a salad, you replace that with millets. Or your couscous can be replaced with millets. So these dishes are some examples where it can be accepted in the Western cuisine.
So tell me, will the pizza rise as much? Will I get that nice, crusty, soft dough?
No. So when you're introducing millets and trying to accept them as part of your diet, you shouldn't compare it to, rice or wheat. You should accept it as a whole new dish. So then you try it and taste it as, just like suppose there was a new dish in the restaurant, something rice based or millet based or wheat based, and something you've not tried before, you have nothing to compare it to. Similarly, you should accept millet as something new, because it's not going to be similar to wheat.
That's rice. A fair ask. I mean, the very fact is you're trying something new, you're going to experience something new.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about this whole gluten-free aspect. Because you mentioned bajra, jowar. I mean, there's this whole, focus on going gluten-free. Is our millets absolutely gluten-free? And when we say gluten-free, doesn't it also make it a little harder to cook, which is what every homemaker wants to run away from?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it is naturally gluten-free, and it can be part of your gluten-free diets. And talking about the cooking aspects, it is not as easy as your rice and wheat. So rather than cooking millets directly, for example, if you were to put it in a pressure cooker and directly cook it, like rice, it might take longer. So it would be better that you soak it at least for 30 to 60 minutes and then cook it.
Okay, so soak your millets, regardless of which ones, the little ones, the big ones, the pseudo millets, just soak your millets. The other big trend, of course, we are all obsessed with going organic. Is that possible if I switch to millets?
Absolutely, there are so many organically available millets, and I would suggest consuming organic millets over the regular ones so that you know the source from where you're getting your millets. Of course, it's pesticide free and all the other benefits, so it is better you try organic millets.
Now the other is the whole ready to cook and the snacking. You mentioned snacking. Now those are fresh snacks, but the whole sort of processed food markets. Now, would it be preferable, for instance, when I'm in a supermarket aisle, to reach for something which is millet based as opposed to, say, the traditional, maida, atta based snacks?
Absolutely. I mean, you must have heard of makana or the roasted fox nuts.
Right.
Similarly, you get millet based like your jowar puffs. So that's a snack that you could try. Then you must have heard of lavash, or where you dip and have it with different dips. You get that also millet based. You get ragi crackers. So yes, you have a wide variety in millets as well, which you can pick off from this,
Okay, so remember that next time when you're in the supermarket aisle, try and focus on that. Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Nikita, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And as we wrap up this insightful discussion with Dr. Nikita Suresh, it's clear that the Mission Millets initiative driven by ITC and the News 18 network carries the torch of change, lighting the path towards a millet and health revolution in our country. But remember, this journey doesn't end here. It begins in your homes, in my kitchen, and in our daily choices. Let's pledge to make millets an integral part of our diets, one meal at a time. Goodbye, and thank you so much for watching.